This is a football podcast, man. Meat, football, good. Man, we talk football. We eat burgers.
Welcome back to a Sunday edition of Scramble Drill. I'm Josh Johnson, and over
Special
there,
edition.
freshly shaven, haircutted. What's the term? You're looking good. You're looking nice.
I had my ears lowered.
There, there you go. Ben is coming in fresh and ready to rock and roll. It's a nice, chill Sunday afternoon. We said, you know what? Let's do an episode.
Yeah, it's kind of a special one. Our, I guess, Scramble Drill Dynasty, quote unquote. It wasn't a super public thing. We only announced it once on the podcast, but I think we got a good group of guys into a 12-teamer that we were starting. I'm commissioning the league. We just wanted some active guys who are going to respond, look at your trades, just all around be good league mates. And I think we got a good crew here. So we just finished up that startup draft, and this is kind of for them, but for everybody. And I think it'll be good information because it's an actual startup draft that we're going to react to and break down. And it's not a mock. It's not where people who are no stakes in it taking picks. It's like these guys were on the clock. This is an actual draft that happened. So I think there's going to be a lot of useful information in this.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be a fun little exercise. Obviously, all of the ADP and things like that will change significantly throughout the offseason. So I don't know, like it was just fun for us because I think we normally do our startups and all of our important drafts, you do them later in the offseason process. So right now we're operating with a lot of guessing, even though we know landing spots for rookies and, free agency has come and gone. There's still quite a bit that could change throughout the offseason and in OTAs and training camps and things like that. So it's going to be fun just to see how this draft ages based on the news that we get in the offseason and, how things shake out.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Should be a lot of fun. So should we just hop into it? Should we just go look at the draft board?
Yeah, I don't think there's any news that have happened. We've got that brand new news drop that you figured out how to use, and we can't use it.
Well, I got another one for us that we can use for this specific purpose.
Let's do it.
And here we go.
Oh, you know how to get my attention.
Oh, that's so good.
You know how to do it.
It's so good.
Dark Knight's one of my favorite all-time movies. Doesn't matter like the genre. Are we talking just about superheroes? No, like just all-time movies. It's like top 2 for me.
So good. Okay, so if you're wanting to see the draft board, you can do that on YouTube. We will have it below us as we talk about it, as we go through it. So if you want that visual paired with our nice, sultry voices, you can certainly do that on YouTube. For those listening on audio, I guess here's how we're going to do this. We'll probably just jump around and give some overarching thoughts and maybe dive into specific picks and just some different team decisions that happen throughout this draft as we go through it.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Overarching settings here. This is... Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because I can't fully remember all of them. It's not your average. It's not your dad's fantasy league. This is super flex.
And it's hardcore.
What is it? 3 wide receivers, 3 flexes?
3 wide receivers, 3 flexes, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. Obviously, you've got your super flex position. It's 6 points per passing touchdown. It is full PPR. And in 1 point tight end premium. So every time a tight end catches a pass, he gets 2 points for that. So hopefully really high scoring settings, which I think is fun to me. So, but it gets intense with the scoring settings as well. I will say that. And it's 12 teams. So you got super deep teams and you got 12 of them. So your margin for error is much thinner than it normally would be.
Yeah, it'll be really fun to see how this ages. We've got another Dynasty League that uses these settings, and it has been a blast. So much fun because it changes everything you know about fantasy when you completely change the scoring settings and the lineup settings. We were used to, I mean, we've done Superflex in the past. We've got Log, which is a Superflex league, but it's a 10-teamer, and the lineups are a little bit smaller. And this is 12 teams, massive lineups. And you add in the tight end premium element there as well. So it changes how you approach a draft significantly from your average run-of-the-mill, 2 flexes, 2 wide receivers, regular scoring for tight ends. It changes how you would approach a startup.
Yeah. And I just, for me at least, I like the 6 point per passing touchdown aspect. I feel like generally quarterbacks are always 4 per passing touchdown, which is fine. That's your standard, but I don't know. I like in these bigger leagues like this, just having that quarterback be so incredibly valuable is fun to me.
Yeah, and another aside, recently I have been kind of fed up with quarterback scoring because your best quarterbacks in the NFL are not your best quarterbacks in fantasy. Let's take Joe Burrow, for example. Not a prolific runner. He's a decent runner. He gives you a little bit on the ground.
That's good enough.
But he kills you in the passing game. He can go out and throw for 5,000 yards and 45 touchdowns in like a ceiling outcome for him. That's your ceiling outcome. It's a great year for him. But he's not necessarily going to finish as a top 3 fantasy quarterback unless he has, his best possible ceiling outcome in real life. Whereas a guy like Lamar Jackson can finish top 3 in fantasy year in and year out just because he's so good on the ground. Jalen Hurts, the same thing. Jalen Hurts is not a better real life quarterback than Joe Burrow, but because rushing production is broken for quarterbacks in fantasy football, it changes how you do things. So it's great, I guess, to have these running quarterbacks that are cheat codes. It's really fun if you have one. But at the same time, it would be really nice if your best quarterbacks in football were also your best quarterbacks in fantasy. I don't know how we could even get there, but that's something that's been sitting.
That's another reason I like 6 point per passing touchdown is it does give the boost to the guys like CJ Stroud, like Joe Burrow, who for real life, like Joe Burrow is, in my opinion, the second best quarterback in the league, only behind Patrick Mahomes. So like he goes at the 105 in this startup, and that makes sense. Like Lamar is not going to throw as many touchdowns as Joe Burrow is. So when you add that extra point or 2 points on those passing touchdowns, it narrows the gap between those two guys just a little bit.
Yeah. Anyways, that's just been something I've been chewing on recently. And I don't know if you can really level the playing field with rushing quarterbacks and passing quarterbacks. I don't know. It's not a thing you can do. But anyways, let's hop into this draft. Where do you want to go first? I leave you with the floor. Tell us where you want to head.
Yeah, I mean, we can I guess glance at the first round. Nothing really spectacular really stands out. The first 6 picks go pretty much exactly the way you expect. Allen, Hurts, Mahomes, Stroud. I guess the only thing of note is Hurts goes ahead of Mahomes, which I mean, personally, that doesn't bother me because I feel like Josh Allen still is probably at least in my opinion, he's kind of the undisputed QB1 with his passing and rushing. It's just, he's kind of in a tier by himself. And then Jalen Hurts and Mahomes and Stroud are kind of in tier 2. And I would throw Burrow and Lamar in there as well. But yeah, I don't hate Hurts there. Also, the guy who has him is an Eagles fan. His name is Alex. I'm in 3 Dynasty leagues with Alex, and he has Jalen Hurts in every single league. So
he's heavily dependent.
He's an Eagles fan if there's ever has been, so I respect it. But yeah, the first 6 don't surprise me. Justin Jefferson at 1.7, that's probably right about where he should go. And I'm really okay with him at value, no matter what. He's that good. Anthony Richardson, I guess, is interesting at 8. But also I don't hate it either. If he stays healthy, he's gonna smash for fantasy.
Yeah,
then
that's
CD, Justin Herbert, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra.
The one that I think is interesting is Anthony Richardson because he has the ceiling to be Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. Like, I
Yes.
think when you're picking him, you're weighing the possibility of him reaching that outcome. And I'm not sure that is a 10% chance outcome. Like, that might be a 30, 40% chance of that outcome happening just because he's so capable as a runner and he has Shaden Steichen as a play caller, which
And he's got
forget.
good weapons. I mean, Michael Pittman is a great one. They just add A.D. Mitchell, whose talent is off the charts. Plus, you still got Josh Downs. You still like Alec Pierce, who are very good receivers in their own right. So,
Yeah. So, he's not valued as that type of guy quite yet, but I think it's incredibly possible at the end of this season we look at him as an untouchable quarterback in Dynasty. Now, granted, he's coming off a small
I
sample
get why
size.
too. I mean, it's really a 2-game sample size that you have with Anthony Richardson. That's kind of it.
Yeah.
Because he played 4 games, but he got hurt in 2 of them. So
Yeah, you have to do a bit of projecting to get there. And I don't know how about you, but I saw enough in the 2 games to say, okay, he's going to work. He processes. I think it was Ben Solak, who's a writer for The Ringer, said that, if a quarterback comes in and he's raw, that tends to be a bit of a red flag because you got to develop and you got to be able to process what defenses are throwing at you. And Anthony Richardson came into the league and he was considered raw, but Solak said that, yeah, he came in and he was raw, but it was just inexperienced. He's not raw. He's still, in those 2 games, you saw he was making the right reads. He was doing what you would want your young quarterback to do.
in those 2 games, he threw the ball definitely better than I think either one of us expected him to do.
Yeah, I kind of thought that it would be a bit of a train wreck throwing the ball year 1. I really did. It's now infamous. I had Michael Pittman at wide receiver 48 because I expected Anthony Richardson to be horrendous throwing the ball year 1, and I thought he would skate by on rushing. And he was a lot better than that.
So yeah, still small sample size, but I don't hate it there. My favorite value in the first, I think, is Jamar Chase at 111.
Yeah, I like that.
I think most people would have him like 1.8 but even sometimes even higher, like 1.7. So, and the guy who got him, Landon Davis, was going to take him, I think, at pick 8, but he was able to trade back and still get the guy he wanted. So I really love the value there.
Yeah, that was a good move. And I think it was sort of interesting to see how the quarterbacks went. Like, obviously, the first, 6 picks are quarterbacks. And then it's, okay, how do you value these elite receivers versus the Herberts, the Richardsons, Jordan Love was the first pick of the 2nd round. So, like, I don't know.
That felt a little high to me. I thought I might get Jordan Love at the 2-3 turn, which is where I picked. I picked at 1, and then so it was obviously bookends, but he went high.
Yeah, he did. He went above Caleb Williams, above Kyler Murray, above Trevor Lawrence in the 2nd round. So
I think him and Trevor, I think, is a conversation to me. I don't pick your poison, whichever one of those guys you like better take. But I think I would definitely prefer Caleb and Kyler to Jordan Love right now.
I would certainly
Caleb
prefer
goes at
Kyler.
2, which I feel is good value. I see Caleb going in the 1st round a lot.
Yeah, Caleb in the 1st it's tough because the guys going in the 1st are home runs. Like, those are your cornerstone pieces. And Caleb Williams probably will be that, but you still have to do a bit of projecting to get there. And sometimes calling your shot in a startup is okay, but
I feel like if Anthony Richardson warrants first, and this is not me hating on Anthony Richardson, but if he warrants a 1st round pick, then I think Caleb Williams also should warrant a 1st round pick because Anthony Richardson has only played 2 full games. And Caleb Williams is walking into the best situation we've ever seen a number 1 overall pick go to.
Yeah. Yes, but if you're projecting the ceiling outcomes for Anthony Richardson and for Caleb Williams, I think for Anthony Richardson, that outcome is far better than what Caleb Williams would be for fantasy, not necessarily for real life.
Yeah. I guess I can agree with that. I think the first I guess, quote unquote, head scratching move was Christian McCaffrey at the 2-3 in this league.
Yeah, that was interesting. He goes over Bijan Robinson, over Marvin Harrison, over A.J. Brown, Puka Nacua, Breece Hall, Sam Laporta, this is tight end premium, over Kyler Murray, over Trevor Lawrence.
I don't. If you want to win, he's probably still the best asset to have. But it's harder for, I guess, me to justify the pick where if you're going to take a running back, Bijan is still there on the board. I think Bijan is going to absolutely dominate the season, and the runway with him is so much longer than Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is going to be 28 this season. Bijan is going to be 22. So you're looking at 4 or 5 more like years that I feel confident in having Bijan Robinson versus the end is coming eventually with CMC. I don't know when, but it is coming.
Yeah, I mean, he's the sort of player that I think it's perfectly okay if you grab him and let him die on your roster as a competing team. Where it gets really difficult for me, and this was the choice that was made in this draft, is that if you take Christian McCaffrey this early in the second round, you're signaling to yourself and the rest of the league that you are a competing roster. And so from there on out, because you've taken a piece that is so, like, this is only a competing player, you cannot use him in a rebuild at all. So you've got to make moves that that are funneled in that direction. And it's just too early, I think, to make a move like that in a draft where it's your second pick. So, like, you don't know what sort of value you're going to get to fall to you later in the draft. And like, if a Kyle Pitts or somebody falls to you later in the draft where it's a great value, you end up passing on that player because you want the competing piece. And I don't know. It's just, I really don't understand passing on him over Bijan, over Marvin Harrison, because I think those two are clearly better assets in general. Competing, rebuilding, doesn't matter.
Yeah. And if you take, that's kind of what I was saying. Like, if you take Bijan there, I'm okay with that, because if the value comes for quote unquote rebuilding pieces like a Kyle Pitts later, like, you can still take that and have Bijan on your team and feel good about it because Bijan is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah. I don't know how you approach this draft. The way I approached it, because when you've got so many lineup spots to fill, 3 wide receivers, 3 flexes, super flex, tight end premium, you're going to be taking a lot of dart throws at some point during this draft. And you don't know exactly how your lineup is going to come out in a year or two because values change. So I basically approached it like, I just want to get as many cornerstone pieces as I can, players that I feel confident that their value's pretty insulated. And we'll just figure it out as we go along. I don't really want to call shots on players like Christian McCaffrey that might have a shorter runway, because I don't know, like, things could change quickly. I'll just take guys I feel really comfortable with for like a 3 to 4 year window, and we'll just figure it out. And I think some people would think that's kind of obvious, but it's not, because when you get in here and you have Christian McCaffrey on the board, you're saying no to a championship year one sometimes when you're making moves like this. And we play the game to win. So, like, it is tough to kind of gauge that, like, I want to keep value on my lineup, but I also want to be good at the same time.
Yeah, and you were kind of like, to touch on a little bit what you said, you don't want to hate the pick because, like, I mean, I know Christian McCaffrey is going to be good this year, barring injury. So you're going to have a great player on your roster this year, but it's just a little early, I guess, in our opinion, to like fully plant your flag and like, no, I'm going to try to win a championship right now when you're at the 2-3, when so much else is still yet to happen in the draft.
Yeah, and that's pretty much just all that it comes down to for me. There's so much still to come, so many question marks. It feels pretty early to say, okay, here's what we're doing, because you just don't know what's going to happen later in the draft.
Yeah. But after that pick, I like the Kyler Murray pick at 2-4.
I do too.
I mean, come on, guys. Like, are we going to be surprised if Kyler Murray is a top 5 quarterback this year? Now he's got Marvin Harrison. I wouldn't be.
No.
We've seen him be top 5 before. I don't think his talent has gone anywhere. His knee is healthy now, and you just got him a true number 1 receiver to go along with Trey McBride, and James Conner is there. They bring in Trey Benson. The Cardinals' offense is not going to be bad.
No, it's a fun offense to buy into for fantasy moving forward because you've got the young-ish quarterback in Kyler, and you've got Trey Benson, you've got Marvin Harrison, you've got Trey McBride. So there's a lot to be excited about as the offense kind of builds itself back up, not to mention the offensive line is improved from what it was. Kyler Murray was a top 5 quarterback before his ACL pretty consistently. I think it was 3 straight years of top 7, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong. And then I think he was QB 8 or 9 in points per game once he came back from his ACL last year, and they were obviously terrible. They had the 4th pick in the draft, but he was still producing for fantasy.
Yep. He was QB 6, 3, 10, 19, but he got hurt the year he was 19. And then last year he was 27, but missed half the season. So,
yeah.
The only other pick here in the second round that I wanted to touch on, and you mentioned it when it happened on the clock, is AJ Brown goes a pick over Puka Nacua. And I know we've discussed this on the podcast before. Puka is a guy that neither one of us want to get pushed on because they're like, we love Puka, but where's the line with him? So I feel like if I'm a contending team, sure, I'll probably give the nod to AJ. If I'm on the clock in a startup, I think I give it to Puka.
I would too.
I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it would be Puka because, again, in a startup, it's not necessarily like redraft where you're just trying to draft a team that will win this year. You're trying to draft the team that gives you the most cornerstone pieces or studs or whatever you want to call them to build around moving forward. Some people approach it like you're trying to win this year, but I don't think that's probably the smart way to do it. And if we're doing it in this way, Puka Nacua holds more value for me than AJ Brown does.
Yeah. Then Sam Laporta goes 211. I like that a lot with the scoring settings we've got. Garrett Wilson, Jaden Daniels. That was mine. I was the first guy to take a second quarterback. With these league settings, I really wanted to just go ahead and secure that super flex spot. And Jaden Daniels, I think, is a guy who is going to start right out of the gate with his rushing potential. He's got top 10 upside. I don't know if he's necessarily going to do it, but he can, given his rushing.
Yeah, he's a great pick. I was picking at the 6th spot, and I was really hoping that, in the second round, it took Marvin Harrison with Jaden Daniels and Brock Purdy still on the board. I thought that one of those two would make it back to me in the 3rd, and neither one of them did. I was like, okay.
No.
Quarterbacks went.
I really want to
and
highlight
often.
the team that got CJ Stroud, Puka, and Purdy. That's a really good start. I like that start a lot.
That is an amazing 3-round start because you've got 2 great quarterbacks and a cornerstone receiver, which in PPR, that's about as good as you could hope for.
Again, and with this roster construction, the most valuable things you can have are going to be quarterbacks followed by receivers because you can start 6 receivers.
Right. Well, I would argue also tight end because it's 2 point per reception. So like and tight ends are basically scoring like wide receiver ones in this league. So if you have 2 studs, like if you were to stack,
it's not uncommon when Travis Kelce drops 40 points.
Right. It's amazing if you could start out with like a Dalton Kincaid and Trey McBride. Then it's like, oh wow, that's an incredible start. Just because tight ends are so juiced. But yes, you're right. 2 quarterbacks and a stud receiver. That's amazing.
Anything else in the 3rd round that you notice that seems to stand out to you?
I've got 2 things. I took Malik Neighbors in the 3rd with Dak Prescott and Drake London on the board. It was a tough.
That pick.
You like that one?
I do. Look, this is how high I am on Malik Neighbors, okay? I got Garrett Wilson and Jaden Daniels at the 2-3 turn. If Garrett Wilson had gone a pick before that, I was going to go Malik Neighbors and Jaden Daniels.
Interesting.
That's how high on Malik Neighbors I am.
I am very high on him. I think you probably are a bit higher than I am. And I pretty much took him here because there was a tier break for me at quarterback. Brock Purdy was the quarterback that I realistically thought I could get and wanted, but he went 2 picks earlier. And I like Dak Prescott, but I don't really love him, and he's 30. So I was like, okay, in the 3rd round, I don't really want to take a player that I'm kind of just like bleh on. And I really like Neighbors, and I think even further than that, his value is going to be incredibly insulated because of his draft capital and because of the target share that he's about to have in New York.
Yeah. And everybody's low on Daniel Jones, which I get it. So when right now Daniel Jones is your worst case scenario, and in defense of Daniel Jones, we've never seen him with a good receiver ever. So, I mean, if he is bad, like, okay, he's going to start this year with a bad quarterback and they're going to get him an upgrade next year. So his value can only go up from here.
Yeah. The other thing that I noticed that was interesting in this round here in the 3rd was that Nico Collins went with Jalen Waddle on the board. Who else was on the board when that pick was made?
Brandon Ayuk, all the tight ends. You had Drake May on the board.
You've got...
I'll be honest, I'd take Michael Pittman over him, and Michael Pittman went way later in this draft.
I would probably start the tight end run over Nico Collins right now. Trey McBride, Kincaid, Bowers, Pitts, Hawkinson, Andrews were all on the board when that pick was made. So, I don't know. I am conflicted on Nico Collins, and that's probably why I wouldn't take him, because I'm not 100% sure. In fact, nobody is how that passing pie will shake out for the Texans since they added Stephon Diggs. I don't even know if he's the wide receiver 1 between him and Tank Dell. So, like, in the 3rd round, I want a guy that I know for sure is a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, and you got guys, I would take him Brandon Ayuk, definitely Jalen Waddle. And he did get Dalton Kincaid on the way back around at the the draft turned. So I'm okay with that. But if you're going to take a receiver there, I would have taken Ayuk, Pittman, or Waddle over him.
Yeah, or even another quarterback.
Maybe even Devonta Smith too.
Yeah, that's true.
And honestly, Rome Odunze falls to the end of the 4th round. I would have taken Rome Odunze over Nico Collins there.
That
just
is
because
interesting.
I like the talent of. I mean, I probably wouldn't have gone Odunze necessarily over the receivers that were there at the time, but with the talent of Odunze, he's locked in with a young quarterback. Keenan's on a 1-year deal. I feel, my personal opinion, that Rome is the best, most talented receiver in that room. And Nico might be the 3rd best talented receiver in his room. I don't know, but I feel confident about Rome.
That's really interesting because it's a very similar situation in terms of 3 good pass catchers and a quarterback you like. Now, CJ Stroud, I think right now we would prefer over Caleb Williams, but obviously Caleb Williams...
That's not a question to me.
Yeah, Caleb Williams could grow into something, though, where he's considered the same sort of talent, and I wouldn't be surprised. That being the case, I would massively prefer Rome Odunze's talent to Nico Collins' talent.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily hate that, although
yep.
At that value, you'd have to have some stones to take Odunze in the 3rd round in a startup.
See, now a lot of this is I'm looking at people on YouTube, other people's mocks, things like that. But I do see Rome consistently going in the 3rd round of those. And they're kind of similar settings, usually 12-team, super flex. The young guys really get pushed up the board in those mocks, in those drafts. So I got Rome at the 412. I'm stoked about that. Like, that feels like incredible value for him.
Yeah.
So I need to look at my rankings, but I think I've got Rome around wide receiver 15, but I haven't updated those in a while. That's something that I probably should do that this afternoon. But
I need to do that too.
To get him at wide receiver, I think he went wide receiver 19 off the board. That feels really good.
That's amazing value. It's tough because then you have to figure out who you would take him over because the names over him are good players. But like just on a binary scale of like, is he worth more than the wide receiver 19 price tag? Yes. But you just then have to figure out who you would take him over.
Yeah. And I thought for sure, I was on the clock at the 4:12. I thought for sure I was getting a tight end. I got Josh Allen and Garrett Wilson and Jaden Daniels, which was stoked about that start. And I thought for sure I was going to get somebody at the end of the fourth. Being tight end premium, like, okay, I'll wait and grab whatever tight end falls. Because like you got McBride, Kincaid, Bowers, Pitts, Hawkinson, and Andrews all go in that round. I thought one of those guys would fall. And whichever one did fall, that's who I was going to take. I didn't care who, but I was taking one of them. And none of them got to me.
It's so funny because this draft had rounds where everybody just had the same idea for what they were going to do before the round started. So like the fourth round, everybody knew I got to get a tight end and they all went. There were rounds when it was a quarterback round, like the first round. And then there were also
in the fifth round.
In the fifth round. Yeah. Everybody's like, I need my QB too. So there was a huge run on quarterbacks. There were receiver rounds, like I think it was eighth round. It's like almost all receivers. I guess the fourth round just turned into a tight end round. Everybody was like, okay, we got to get our tight end. We're going now.
Yep. And then round 5 kicks off with JJ McCarthy. I traded that pick, so I didn't take JJ McCarthy.
So, okay, we should probably talk about this pick.
Go ahead.
We bagged on Jake a little bit indirectly because he made the Christian McCaffrey pick. He made the Nico Collins pick. But JJ McCarthy at the 501 is one of my favorite picks of the draft.
Oh, yeah. No, and he texted me about it, like, what do you think about that? I said, no, I 100% agree with that move. Because I didn't know who he was moving up to get, but he's like, I've got a guy like, you willing to trade this pick? And I'm like, yeah, I don't have my sight set on anybody. All the tight ends were gone, but I'd already locked up 2 quarterbacks and 2 good receivers. So I'm like, I'll trade back and just see what value falls. And he goes and gets McCarthy too. I want to say he was the 3rd or 4th team that really secured his QB2. And that's when like the rest of the league went, oh crap, I need a quarterback. And then everybody else, somebody traded up for Goff. You traded up for Bryce Young, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins goes, Deshaun Watson goes. So
I don't know how I feel
that
about
was the
that
round
Bryce
everybody
Young
wanted there. I mean, I think consistently the 5th round is about where he should go. Probably maybe mid to later in the 5th. But the way quarterbacks were coming off the board, I understand you moving up to go get him.
I think at the time, I felt like there was a tier break in terms of not necessarily production, but value insulation. Like Bryce Young had the worst rookie year that I can remember in a very long time for a number 1 overall pick. And they have made a lot of moves to improve that situation there. So it looks a lot better going into this season than it did going into last season. But he was so bad, and it's like, okay, he's not going to be that bad. He's not going to be anywhere close to that bad because he's actually got he's got a good young running back. He's got much improved pass catchers. He's got an improved offensive line. Things are going to be better. It's just a matter of how much better they're going to be. So it's like, okay, if he still held a 5th round value after the year that was that atrocious, where people are calling the Panthers Siberia, meaning that it's the place where fantasy value goes to die, he's probably still going to hold value when he improves and looks like a competent passer. I just can't see a scenario where that same thing happens again. It's not going to be that bad.
No, not you. I mean, you bring in good weapons with Deontay. You trade up to get a 1st round receiver, Xavier Legette. They bring in Jonathan Brooks, who we all like as a running back. I mean, the pieces are set for him to be, at worst, an average quarterback.
Right. And I don't know exactly how I feel about Dave Canales, but I think he is also another X factor there, where he took Baker Mayfield.
I like Dave Canales.
I think I do too. He's like, I don't think he was their first choice, but when you break it down, you're like, man, that combined with the moves they've made, I don't want to get optimistic about the Panthers because they were so bad. I really don't. So don't let me get there. But I am sneaky impressed with this offseason for them And they're certainly not going to be a playoff team, but I can see them being like almost 500, give or take.
Yeah, I mean, can Dave Canales be a successful NFL head coach? I don't know, but I do know he is a quarterback whisperer. So that's all you care about.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Geno Smith resurgence. That was Dave Canales. You've got the Baker Mayfield resurgence. That was Dave Canales. So you hope that now he can parlay that
Now you
into
give
the
him a
Bryce
number one
Young
overall
resurgence.
pick.
Yeah, a dude who's more
Which I
talented,
guess
I think, than the
Baker
other two.
Mayfield was the number one overall pick, but
I guess he
Baker
was.
shouldn't
He
have been the
was.
number one overall pick.
He was the number one overall pick in a draft that had Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, which is still woof.
That was a mistake.
Anyway, we can move on from that pick.
That
We
was a
don't need to
mistake.
talk about that anymore.
Yeah. Other things in the 5th round, I in that trade back picked up the 5-10 and got T. Higgins there. I feel like that's really good value for T. Higgins. We've talked about this before. I mean, last week or a couple weeks ago, of people are lower on T. Higgins for I don't even know what reason. Like he hasn't risen up my board, but he hasn't fallen down my board either. He's just right where he's always been. I don't know why people are just passing on T. Higgins.
I don't know. I think it's just ooh shiny. I think it just comes down to that. Ooh shiny. T. Higgins has been the same thing for 3 years in a row. Very talented, oft injured. And I don't see how his value really dips all that much from where it is right now. And we're excited about rookies. And so people just bump T. Higgins further down their board.
Yeah. After that, 6th round, Will Levis at 6-1. How do you feel about that?
Will Levis is really interesting. I did actually consider him in the 5th before I traded up for Bryce Young. I was trying to figure out, like, okay, what's the difference?
That would have been early. That would have been really early.
That would have been way too early. And that's ultimately what I decided. I was like, I don't have nearly the same conviction about Will Levis that I do about Bryce Young. I don't know, dude. I couldn't make the pick. I just couldn't get there with Will Levis. If he fell to like the 7th or 8th round, I'd have probably been more okay with it. They did improve the offensive line. They did improve the pass catchers. And they added Tony Pollard. So all those things, check.
Good pass catcher.
But yeah.
And you bring over Callahan from Cincinnati. Callahan's a really good offensive guy.
Right. So all those things are check. And then it comes down to how good is Will Levis actually? I don't know. I know with Bryce Young, he was the number one overall pick. He looked great playing at Alabama. I thought Bryce Young would be better year one. Obviously, things didn't go super good. I had none of those convictions about Will Levis in the pre-draft process. Like, I just was not sure that he was an NFL quarterback. And year one didn't do a whole lot to change my view either way. Like, I didn't see a whole lot that said, yep, he's an NFL guy, good pick. I also didn't see a whole lot to say for sure he stinks. It's still kind of in the middle, and I'm just not sold either way. So I have no clue how to feel about that pick because I just don't know how I feel about him as a player.
Yeah, no, I understand the pick for the guy's sake because I think everyone had gotten their QB2 at that point. So he's like, I need somebody. Will Levis is young. They're obviously putting pieces around him. So let me go ahead and let's just lock this in right now. Don't have to think about it and see where we go from there.
I think there's one quarterback I would have probably taken over him in that situation where you need a QB2. Bryce Young was the last young guy that I was like, I have some conviction about him. I'll take him. Past that, I'm looking at Matthew Stafford just because you know what you're getting in terms of production and you're kind of pushing it down the road a little bit where you know you're going to have to address quarterback in the draft at some point again. And I guess just because I have no convictions about Levis either way, I'll just take the production that I know Stafford's going to give me for like another year or two and take shots on rookies in future rookie drafts.
Yeah. I am a little interested the rest of the 6. I grabbed Xavier Worthy and Ladd McConkey. Xavier at 6'3", Ladd at 7'1". I think I've since actually changed my tune a little bit and prefer Ladd to Xavier. But at the time, I was like, Chiefs traded up for Xavier. The Chargers traded up for McConkey, so I wanted both of those guys. They all went ahead of Brian Thomas Jr., JSN, Jordan Addison, George Pickens. Yeah. I don't know.
The Xavier Worthy over Rashee Rice one was where I had some, like, because I don't feel that way. I would prefer Rice, and you took Worthy over him. So that one I was like, I don't know. And I probably would also have taken Zay Flowers over Worthy. So the Worthy one was like, oh, we're getting aggressive. And I understand it because he's in a Patrick Mahomes offense. He's got a chance to maybe.
And he was a first-round receiver that is like, actually looks like a good receiver. Like the Chiefs have all of their experiments have been failing with Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. I don't see Xavier Worthy as much as of an experiment as those two guys. Like I think Worthy can be a legit weapon for Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, that's true. With McConkey, I feel better, I think, because where you got him at the 7-1. So like I don't know how I feel about him versus Brian Thomas. That's a tough conversation.
See, that is an interesting conversation I kind of wanted to have. Is I pre-draft definitely preferred Brian Thomas, but Jacksonville is such a weird situation to me because I feel like they're going to Trevor Lawrence's over the middle targets are going to be Christian Kirk and they're going to be Evan Ingram. Can Brian Thomas immediately start over Gabe Davis? I don't know because Gabe Davis is also a good pass blocker. They liked him for that in Buffalo and a good blocker in general. So that's where things got murky for me. I know Ladd is walking into a good situation. I mean, on paper, I think he's the one for Justin Herbert. 52% of Justin Herbert's targets walked out of the door this year for the Chargers. And I was listening to I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was like Underdog, and they were talking about, Ladd McConkey. And what did Jim Harbaugh say about Ladd McConkey is that he always knows where he is. Every move that Ladd McConkey makes on the field is intentional. His routes are great. He doesn't waste movement, anything like that. So that means, Justin Herbert is going to trust Ladd McConkey. He's going to be I know Ladd McConkey's there in a panic situation. I'm firing it into him.
I don't want to get you excited, but do you know who that sounds like?
Cooper Kupp.
It sounds like Puka Nacua.
Puka Nacua.
That's his calling card, man.
He went way higher. He went way higher than Puka Nacua did draft capital wise. But like if you want to pick who is this year's Puka Nacua, it is glaringly like flashing. It's Ladd McConkey, guys.
Yeah, and that's not to say he's going to have 1,400 yards, but I could absolutely see
in a full PPR league though. Like McConkey could eat. Like consistently 7 catches for 70, 80 yards a week.
I could see that for sure. And it's just because there's really no other proven pass catchers in that offense anywhere.
They brought in DJ Chark, which I'm low key kind of high on DJ Chark now because I think he's better than Quentin Johnston. I've seen DJ Chark be a successful deep threat in this league. And that signing only made me like Ladd more. I'm like, okay, they've got another really solid deep threat, which means McConkey is just going to dominate short and middle of the field this year.
Yeah. I have an idea.
I think Brian Thomas is a better player, but the target situation, I have no idea how it shakes out in Jacksonville versus I feel really confident with Ladd McConkey. Just to sum up that whole conversation we just had. Now we can move on.
Fair. I have an idea for how we can close this out and really put a bow on this thing. We've gotten through like 6 rounds, but why don't we jump into like team by team and just like go through and look at the lineups and see yes or no, sort of how we feel about the teams, how they came together.
Okay. I like it.
Dope. Let me pull them up real quick. I probably should have done that before I made my little announcement. That would have helped, wouldn't it?
We'll probably drop this to the league itself so they can see this before everybody else and see we appreciated your team and things like that.
Okay, dope. We're going to, I forgot that Sleeper does this thing where if you go into the league tab, it just shows you the matchups. Whereas if you do it on mobile, you can actually see everybody's lineup.
Yeah.
Anyway, give me 1 second here.
Wasting time, Josh.
My fault. Okay. We'll start
Bingo.
with
All right.
Fausto.
I
Quarterback.
don't know how to say that, so I'm sorry.
I hope it's Fausto. Quarterback, he's got Anthony Richardson, super flex,
Love it.
also quarterback. Drake May, very interesting.
Got Drake May at good value at 4.5, I think.
He did.
Drake May's being pushed down draft boards, so I could see myself getting a lot of Drake May this year.
Yeah. At his 2 running back spots, he's running out Bijan Robinson and Saquon Barkley. Love that.
Great.
Receiver spots, Chris Olave, Stephon Diggs, DK Metcalf. Very interesting. I think that's pretty solid.
Yeah.
His tight end is Jake Ferguson, and his 3 flex spots as they sit today are Tony Pollard, Romeo Doubs, and Josh Downs. I think those are all of his players of note. How do you feel about this team just based on that lineup from the get-go?
I'm going to go ahead and say this so nobody in the league just hates me right off the bat. I don't think anybody really made any crazy reaches in the draft, made any super mistakes. Nobody traded future rookie picks, which is interesting. So I will say a lot of the league is very, very even, so it's going to be hard to pick out who's necessarily worse. So if we say we do or don't like it, don't take it too personally and don't read a whole lot into it because there's so much we don't know yet about the team.
Yeah, and on top of that, nobody really went all in as a competing team or all in as a rebuilding team. A lot of times in these drafts, okay, this team, they're just trying to mortgage the future. Mortgage the future and go all in now. And, this other team, they just went all young players, and in a couple of years, maybe it'll all work out. Nobody really did that. It was kind of a mix for everybody.
Which is good and bad. Good for everybody in the league, but also really hard for us right now because I don't know how to say, this team's going to win it all.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
but if I had to pick, I do feel good about this team, though. You've got
so too.
three not necessarily outstanding receivers. They all have question marks around them, but I think 3 very solid receivers, which is more than a lot of other teams in the league can say. Bijan and Saquon is an elite duo. I think, to me, the question mark is going to be Drake May. If Drake May starts and Anthony Richardson stays healthy, I think this team definitely contends.
Yeah, it will be tough because Drake May might struggle a little bit year 1. And then also the tight end. Jake Ferguson, he was pretty good last year. He scored a lot. I don't feel great about him as my tight end in a league where elite tight ends separate from average tight ends a significant amount. So I don't know. Ferguson to me is kind of like the last good tight end, but I feel like there's a gap between him and some of the other elite ones. And then the flex spots are like, I don't know, Tony Pollard, Dobbs, Downs. Don't feel amazing.
I think Tony Pollard's not a bad flex. Tony Pollard's he's gonna score points for you this year.
Yeah, he probably will.
Freiermuth is in a spot. Josh Downs, I don't like him anymore, not with the A.D. Mitchell being drafted there, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So Fausto, for the most part, probably pretty solid.
All in all, really good.
Okay, my team's here. We might as well just do it. I won't say anything about mine. I'll let you do all the analysis here. Quarterback, Lamar Jackson, super flex.
Love it.
Bryce Young. Running backs.
Yours. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Running backs are Tajay Spears and Jerome Ford, LOL. Receivers.
Oof.
Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Rashee Rice. Tight end is Kyle Pitts. Flex spots right now are Christian Kirk, David Njoku, and Keon Coleman.
The only problem with yours is I was not secretive about the fact I wasn't drafting running backs in this. I was going all receivers, quarterbacks, and I was hoping to get one elite tight end, but I didn't. You are the only team that has a worse running back room than I do, I think. Mine is bad. Yours is far worse.
Mine's terrible. I knew from the get-go.
Yeah, you don't have a starting running back.
I was not taking running backs at all, and I ended up taking a bunch of handcuffs. I have a crap load of handcuff running backs, so I'll probably have players that I can play. But
somebody's going to get hurt, right?
Yes, somebody's getting hurt. And Jerome Ford was sneakily the RB15 last year. Now Nick Chubb is coming back, so I don't know.
Nick Chubb went down week 2, so.
But I do not have a RB1, like a definitive RB1 for a team, for an NFL team.
You don't have an RB that starts for a team.
Right. And I'm okay with that. That was kind of the approach going in.
The only, I guess, quote unquote criticism I have, and it's something you would not have known. So you took Lamar at the 1-6, which is fine. Don't hate that pick at all. But the value kind of just fell for the rest of your team as super young. You got Marvin in the second, Malik Neighbors in the third, Rashee Rice is young, Kyle Pitts is young, Christian Kirk's young, Keon Coleman's young, Bryce Young is young. So honestly, Lamar is the oldest guy in your starting lineup. So knowing that, I might have gone with a different quarterback. I might have tried to just trade back and get Caleb or somebody like that, which is still a move you could probably make and just trade Lamar. But the value just fell the way it did, which ties back in what we were saying, is you don't want to lock yourself into contending early because you don't know how the value is going to fall the rest of the draft. So, but I love Malik and Marvin combo. Rashee, once he's back from suspension, is going to be great. Kyle Pitts, I'm high on him. David Njoku, I really wanted him too. You got him. Like, he was my backup tight end. I'm like, okay, I'll get David Njoku in the 7th round. Nope, you took him. You got Christian Kirk in the 8th round. I really like that pick. If they hadn't drafted Brian Thomas Jr., I would have taken him so much higher. And I still, to the same point, like, I don't know how much Gabe Davis really impacts his target share anyway, so I don't really know if I'm moving Christian Kirk that far down my board, honestly. I feel like he's going to be a PPR monster. And Keon Coleman is the wide receiver 1 for the Bills, so, I mean, I like it.
Yeah, we will see. This is very much a team where it's like, I don't know how it's going to go year one. I really don't. I mean, it could be fine. It could be a playoff team. It could also be a team that stinks. Like, it could be bad. I don't know.
It could be one of those, give it like 3 weeks, and if things aren't going your way, you're selling Lamar Jackson, getting a haul for him, and loading up for next year.
Seriously. Because it's so young, like the runway for this team. I mean, it's not a team that realistically will be super great year one, just because you got all these guys that are they're young, but they're players that have really insulated values.
In the same breath, if Marvin can be top 10 and Malik Neighbors is, say, top 15, the team's got an outshot shot to be good. Like, okay, you punted on running back. But if you can get 2 guys in there who can get you 10 points a week, I mean, I know that's not a lot. You need good running backs to truly push for a championship. But say Pollard goes down. Okay, Tajay Spears is in, and Marvin's dominating. Malik is dominating. Once Rashee Rice comes back from his suspension, like, you got 2 good tight ends in the league where tight ends score a lot. Christian Kirk is, we both think, top 20 at least, if not higher. There is a shot where this team could still be a threat.
Potentially. We shall see. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it yet. The one thing that, like, I'm not really sure about is the Bryce Young pick. That's a pick that, like, I might have lit that one on fire, but it also could be very solid at the same time. So I don't know.
I mean, if Bryce Young's QB 15, that's great value where you got him.
Yeah, that would be very happy with that. Let's jump over here to Landon, the 2 Landons, Davis and Huell. We'll start with Huell. At quarterback, He's got Patrick Mahomes, super flex. He has Matthew Stafford. Okay. I like those. At running back, he's got Breece Hall and Josh Jacobs. Wide receivers are Tyreek Hill, Cooper Kupp,
really good.
Brian Thomas. Tight end is Mark Andrews.
He got Tyreek right about where Tyreek should go, at the beginning, mid, 3rd round.
Yeah.
I know he's older. Maybe this is his last year, I don't know. But he's going to score some points. That's where the Tyreek and Christian McCaffrey, I think, should come off the board, is that range.
Yes.
You've secured yourself 2 cornerstones. Now go get the win now piece. Right.
His flexes are Ramondre Stevenson, Raheem Mostert, and Dalton Schultz. I think this is a competing team. I hate
Ramondre there.
Where did he take Ramondre? I don't even remember.
The 11th round.
Interesting.
And he's got some decent players on his bench. I mean, you got Jerry Jeudy. I mean, say what you will about him, but he did just sign a contract, a pretty decent contract there. Jameson Williams. He's not sexy, but in a deeper league like this, you can spot start him and pray.
Mm-hmm.
The question will be, I think Brian Thomas Jr. is his wide receiver 3 right now. We just talked about questions we've had of how this offense shakes out, but still as a deep threat in the Jaguars offense, I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, and he has competing pieces up and down this thing. So like if Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't really pan out, he has no other upside young receivers. I mean, Cooper Kupp is his wide receiver 2, Tyreek Hill's his wide receiver 1. So if I'm him, I look at how this draft broke out and I'm trying to fill holes with future rookie picks, and I would just be going after it. Because I think you've got like Josh Jacobs and Brees really good right now. Patrick Mahomes is 28 or 29, and he's in the prime of his career.
28.
I would just be getting after it, trying to fill in a couple of these holes. Mark Andrews is still really good, but he's getting toward 30. He's not quite there yet, but I'd be going all in with this team.
I like this. I like this as a winning team.
On the other side of this, Landon Davis, I like what he did a lot just in general, but his quarterback, he's got Kyler Murray.
We talked about Landon. Landon's just a good fantasy player, and he might have my favorite team.
Yeah, he's got Kyler Murray and Jared Goff at quarterbacks. His running backs are David Montgomery and Jonathan Brooks. His receivers are Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk, and Drake London. He's got Travis Kelce at tight end, Devontae Adams, Deontay Johnson, and DeAndre Hopkins as his flexes. This is a competing team.
He's got the best 3 flexes. That's where his team just separates from everyone else, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, you get Jonathan
Brooks. He's got
Brooks.
A guy you feel good about starting at every single position.
Yeah, all 3 of those receivers are going to be really good in PPR. And also, he gets Jonathan Brooks cheap, and he won't be great to start the season, but David Montgomery is a solid running back to have. He also got Marshawn Lloyd in this draft too. So like, that's awesome. Yeah, and that's the benefit of getting all those points at tight end later in your draft. Travis Kelce came in like the 7th round, was it?
Yeah, 6th round. I was actually between Kelce and Worthy when I was on the clock, and I should have taken Kelce. I don't know, but it is what it is now.
Yeah, he's pretty well constructed. He's got young receivers that are productive in Jamar Chase, Brandon Ayuk, Drake London. So it's well balanced. He did a good job.
Yeah, and it's, if for some reason it doesn't work out, you're going to have an opportunity to sell Travis Kelce, during the season. You're going to be able to sell Devontae Adams at some point, or Deontay. These guys will have value that you can get for them.
Let's jump over to your team.
Aha!
Break it down for me. Who you got?
I feel like my team, a little bit like yours, I feel like it's kind of very high ceiling it could have, but it also could have a very low floor. Obviously got Josh Allen to secure at the 101. I want my boy. Got Garrett Wilson, Jaden Daniels. In my opinion, I have the best quarterback room in the league because Josh Allen's the best quarterback for fantasy. Then Jaden Daniels has got top 10 upside. I got Baker Mayfield. And I also got Michael Penix to sit on taxi squad just until he's ready. So I have got options at quarterback for days. I went very young. I got Rome Odunze, Xavier Worthy, and Lad McConkey. All rookie receivers. Garrett Wilson is my wide receiver 1. He's 23, but he could be in for a breakout year. T. Higgins is still 25. So I feel really good about my quarterback and wide receiver room, which arguably are the most important things to have in a league like this. Tight end and running back are where it gets fishy. I don't hate Dallas Goedert. I got Dallas Goedert in the 8th round. He's not a sexy pick, but he's a good tight end. Like he'll probably be a top 10 tight end if he stays healthy. Top 10 tight end. Running back, it gets very sketchy. My running backs are Brian Robinson and Gus Edwards. I took shots on him because Brian Robinson is probably the starter in Washington. Austin Eckler is his only other competition. Austin Eckler is not going to handle a huge workload. He'll take all the receiving work from Brian Robinson. I'm not going to argue that. but Robinson could still see 16 carries a week. So I feel like he's an okay starter. Gus Edwards, I also grabbed J.K. Dobbins for the insulated value there. If Gus Edwards, he's not going to rush for 1,500 yards, but Jim Harbaugh's made it very clear he wants to run the ball, and I could see it being kind of a similar situation to Eckler where Herbert moves them down the field, they get inside the 5 and hand it to Gus Edwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you went the same route I did. It's all receivers. You don't have the tight end, but you've got all receivers and quarterbacks. So, and just punted on running back and took players that could have some value, but I mean, realistically, you're throwing dudes in, and then you'll just draft your running backs in rookie drafts. By the way, next year's draft supposed to have a buttload of good running backs. So,
yep. So if it doesn't work out for either of us this year, which is very possible that it does not work out for either of us, shoot, I'll take the 101. You can have the 102, and we'll just get our running backs next year.
There's supposed to be like 8 or 9 really good ones today. Obviously, things will change, but there's supposed to be a bunch of really good ones next year.
And it's a bad quarterback and wide receiver draft class next year.
Yeah. And we have those in spades.
Yeah, we got those locked, so I'm okay.
On the other side here, we've got Mez. I think it's Nick Mez. His quarterback, Jordan Love, his super flex, Aaron Rodgers / Will Levis. His running backs
Not
are
bad.
Isaiah Pacheco.
You will have a second starting quarterback.
Yeah. Isaiah Pacheco and Kenneth Walker. His receivers are Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Keenan Allen. Tight end, Trey McBride. Flexes, Jalen Warren, Devin Singletary, Cole Kmet.
I like his receiver build a lot. You got a true number 1 in Amon-Ra. You got a good 2 in Jalen Waddle. You've got a guy in Keenan who will probably be pretty good for PPR. Flex, things get a little dicey.
Yeah,
Very dicey, I would say.
Flex is a little tough. I think he's got Trey McBride, which I like a lot at tight end.
Oh, yeah.
I think it gets dicey because outside of your top 3 receivers, there's not much. And that is the trade-off of taking mid-round running backs. He went Pacheco and Kenneth Walker, who are good players, but that's just what you're giving up to take those guys, is you're giving up some of those good receivers, some of those rookie receivers that went in that range. You instead got Pacheco and Kenneth Walker. And that may end up being fine. It's just, I guess, pick your poison. And I guess in our cases, we said we would rather have the value of receivers because it won't just die. If something bad happens, they'll still have value and hang around. But he's probably in a spot where I would think about competing.
Yeah. I think you've got enough at running back. And it's kind of interesting. I was looking at this and kind of looking at everybody's teams. Everybody really has like 7 to 8 guys you feel good about starting. So it's really just where did you invest it? Like you and I have 6 or 7 or 8 guys, but we just invested in quarterback and wide receiver. He has less on the receiver side, but he's got, the help at running back. So I'm really curious as to how it's all going to shake out. Obviously, there's still plenty of trades and everything to be made in the league, but
yeah, the real
I
cheat
guess it's
codes,
where you invested your 7 or 8 guys.
Yeah, the cheat codes are going to be the guys who did not invest heavily in running back, but still get running back production. Those teams will leapfrog everybody else. Because if obviously if you invest in running back, you cannot invest in other things. Let's jump through these last few here. Our buddy Jake Wicks, he's got at quarterback Justin Herbert, and then at Superflex, he has J.J. McCarthy.
J.J. McCarthy.
Love that.
Running backs. That's a good duo. Really good duo.
Yeah. Running backs are Christian McCaffrey, James Conner. Receivers, Nico Collins, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin. Tight end, Dalton Kincaid. Flexes are Joe Mixon, Najee Harris.
You missed,
and then like A.D. Mitchell or Nick Chubb.
I think he's got a good competing roster. We said this earlier, we didn't love Christian McCaffrey and Nico Collins just based on who else was on the board. But he's got a good trio, I think, of receivers with Nico. Nico will still be fine. Terry McLaurin, we expect to make a jump with Jen Daniels. Chris Godwin is a perfectly fine wide receiver 3. CMC, Joe Mixon, and a healthy Nick Chubb. There's a big question mark there. But CMC Mixon and a healthy Nick Chubb really can help you compete. He secured a young tight end. Dalton Kincaid should be fine. I think Jake is definitely a contending team.
He did good in the things you have to do good on, quarterback and tight end in a league like this. He's going to probably have a competing window that will stretch long because you've got Herbert, McCarthy, and Kincaid. They're going to be really good for another 5-6 years. So he has 1 million competing running backs, 1 million. But he'll be okay because those guys will die in value in like a year or two, but he still has the bones that you have to sort of reload a little bit. And then he can lean on the quarterbacks, the receivers, the tight end if he invests in those moving forward, and then just let the running backs, recycle a little bit. Some of the picks by themselves were a little iffy, I think, but like overall, it's a pretty good competing roster. And if I'm him, I would just make a couple more competing moves and try and secure it for this season and maybe even next season.
Yeah. So yeah, good job, Jake. We hated on you probably the most, but overall really good.
Yeah. Let's look at Clarkville Station. He's got Trevor Lawrence, a quarterback. He's got Tua at his other quarterback spot, his super flex spot. Running backs are Travis Etienne, James Cook. Receivers, CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Jaden Reed. Tight end is Evan Ingram. Flex spots are Marquise Brown, Javonte Williams, and Khalil Shakir.
I mean, overall, I like it. You secured your staple quarterback, Trevor. You've got one staple running back, Etienne. You've got a staple receiver, and CeeDee Lamb. Evan Ingram is honestly, probably a monster given the league settings with he's going to catch a bunch of passes. And Tua is the biggest question mark, but I mean, he's fine. It's a super flex league. He's going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, Tua's better than some other QB2s that we have in here, so he's just fine.
Yeah, you'll take it.
The trade-off here is the running back to receiver trade-off, where you invested in Travis Etienne and James Cook, but that means that you did not have the capital to invest in receivers. So you've got CeeDee Lamb, who is a staple. He's great. But outside of that, Mike Evans, he could be dead on your roster next year. Jaden Reed, a lot of people do like him. I'm not there yet because there's so much to go around in that offense. And
I want to see Wicks, Reed, Dobbs, and Christian Watson all healthy at the same time. Then tell me which one's the wide receiver 1.
Right. That's going to be tough. It could be very possible that in a year you have one receiver in CeeDee Lamb, and you have not a whole lot else to speak of at receiver, which is tough. So he's probably competing, but there's potential for error.
His as a team can go either way, I think, and I think he's going to have to make the decision of, do I try to go to a contending team and hey, here's Evans and James Cook. What are you going to give me for those guys? Or if he wants to sacrifice his first, I'm I need another solid key piece here.
Yeah. Let's see here.
I think we're on the last 2, right? Should be.
We've got 4 more.
Alexander and SpongeBob. 4 more.
And Alex Kurtz.
Oh, we haven't done.
And Fausto.
Yeah, we haven't done them. Okay. Gotcha.
Fausto has CJ Stroud at quarterback, and then Superflex is Brock Purdy. Love that. Running backs, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones. Receivers, Puka, DJ Moore, Tank Dell. Tight end is Kate Otten. Flex spots are Jackson Smith and Jigba, Jalen Polk, and Jacoby Myers. This is a really good team.
I'll be honest, this might be my favorite for the simple fact of you got, obviously, I said earlier, I like the Stroud, Puka, Purdy start, but he did what I was hoping to do, didn't do it as successfully. It's got 2 veteran running backs with Kamara and Jones, but veteran running backs that are definitely going to produce.
Yeah. I forgot to also mention.
I've got 1-year rental running backs of Brian Robinson and Gus Edwards, but you don't feel as good about them as you do about Kamara and Jones.
Yeah. And he also has TJ Hawkinson. So he's got his tight end of the future too.
Yeah.
I
guess it just depends on when does TJ play.
Yeah, that's fair. This is a good team. It's a competing team, and it's also just a really nice insulated team in that it's going to still be good in 3 or 4 years.
Bo Nix is his QB3 too, which I think is a significant thing to pay attention to. To have another starter as a depth piece is really nice.
Yeah.
A lot of guys struggled to get 2 quarterbacks. He got 3.
Yeah, I like this team a lot. His 2 starting quarterbacks are great. Purdy as a QB2 is a very good QB2. Yeah, and he's got dudes everywhere.
Yeah.
He did really good. I like this one. Let's look at Alexander. He's got Joe Burrow at quarterback. He's got Kirk Cousins as his super flex. Running backs are Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry. Receivers, A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman, Calvin Ridley. George Kittle at tight end. Flexes, Xavier Legette, Cortland Sutton, Gabe Davis.
This is another one, honestly, I really like this team too. You've got some insulated value on the team with Joe Burrow, A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman are really safe. You got some young good pieces with Xavier Legette and Trey Benson who will hold value, but you've also got competing pieces like Derrick Henry and Calvin Ridley and George Kittle too, and Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. This will be interesting because it's one of those, it could be either kind of a just play it out and stretch it for a few years and see how these younger players develop. It could also be a team where you say, you know what, this team can win. Let's go win. It'll be interesting to see what he decides to do with it because I think you have a lot of flexibility, which is always a fun thing to have. Like, I don't have flexibility. I don't, at least not for year one. I don't think I have a team that's like, oh yeah, this team for sure could win right now. It's flexible in terms of
you and I
value.
had to have some things go right. I think for you to have it happen, I think Harrison and Neighbors have to be top 10 right out of the gate.
Yeah.
For it to happen for me, I think either 2 out of 3 of Rome, Worthy, and Ladd have to be top 24 at least. And Jaden Daniels has got to be top 10. You and I just have so many more variables that have to swing right. Now, obviously, we both have value well insulated into our team, so it's not going anywhere. But I don't know if we necessarily win out of the gate.
Yeah, not immediately. Last 2 here. Alex Kurtz. He's got Jalen Hurts at quarterback. He's got Daniel Jones as his super flex. Yeah, that's a super flex.
Daniel Jones is going to be startable this year.
He will be. Jahmyr Gibbs, Kyron Williams at running back. Devonta Smith, Amari Cooper, and Mike Williams at the 3 receivers. Sam Laporta at tight end. Flexes are Devon Achane, Rashad White, and Austin Eckler. He took so many running backs.
He definitely has the best running back room, no question.
He's got 6 of them in his starting lineup.
5 of them.
Well, yeah, a bunch of running backs, and they're good and they're young. So that's, well, outside of Eckler, he's not young, and you could argue maybe not good.
We'll see. Yeah, Kurtz isn't going anywhere. Not that he's going to be competing this year. Got the best tight end. I don't love Devonta Smith as my wide receiver 1, but it is what it is. That's how the value shook out. But I think he got players everywhere. He's bolder than me. I wouldn't have taken that many running backs, but hey, go win it, man.
Yeah, I mean, we're not big Rashad White fans, but he's probably, I can't remember when he got him, but I think I remember it being a pretty decent value.
You got him in late 6.
Yeah, that's fine. Kyron Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs, I love where he took Jahmyr Gibbs. Devon Achane is a guy I don't want to be pushed on, but he's probably a pretty good value. It's not like he took old, busted running backs. He took running backs who still have a good stretch where they could be good for the next, good bit. But he did take a lot of running backs, and running back values change very, very fast.
That'll be interesting.
I
mean, Kyron himself, he's already taken a hit.
Yeah. But I think overall pretty solid. Last one, SpongeBob. Quarterback, Dak Prescott. Superflex, Caleb Williams. Fantastic. Running backs, DeAndre Swift, Zamir White. Receivers, Justin Jefferson, Deebo Samuel, Zay Flowers. Brock Bowers at tight end. Flexes are George Pickens, Jordan Addison, Zach Charbonnet.
This is a good team, too.
I like this one a lot. He did a lot of trading back. and he acquired like a nice deep lineup. I think, Justin Jefferson's always obviously amazing, but he didn't necessarily acquire top end talent. He just acquired a bunch of really good players.
I mean, he's got good top end, like Caleb Williams. If he hits the way we think he could, he's going to be a stud for a long time. Justin Jefferson is the wide receiver 1, but outside of that, he's got a lot of 2s. But again, in the league this deep, sometimes it's not always the studs that do it. If I can get one really good stud, or can I get 2 guys that are startable in the league like this, you might prefer just the 2 guys that start.
Yeah.
And will get you consistent points versus one guy who will get you. I mean, I prefer one guy to get me, or 2 guys that can get me 15 points versus one guy who's going to get me 20.
Right. Yeah. And I think he did that really, really well. He's also got Ricky Pearsall on the bench. That could be a really interesting player to have. Hendon Hooker's
He's got
sitting
Debo
there
too. So if one of those is out of the board, off the team,
yeah, then both could be really valuable and not necessarily vulturing each other. And he did what we did where he punted on running back, but he still got productive running backs that he can start. DeAndre Swift and Zamir White. I would take them over the 2 guys I've got, but he didn't have to pay much to get them, but they could still produce for him.
Yeah, I would trade my 2 guys in a heartbeat for those 2 guys.
So yeah, he did really, really well. That's the league. That's the draft. That was really fun.
Yeah. Let us know who you guys' favorite team is. I'm a little biased towards my own, but
I do like what I did. There were several teams though where it's like, man, you did a really good job with this team. So it's always fun to see the different approaches. I think for the most part, everybody had a similar approach in this draft. So you don't have massive divergent teams where it's like, oh, they're obviously trying to do this, they're obviously trying to do that. I think for the most part, everybody was like, outside of a couple of teams, everybody's like, we're keeping the value window open, and we'll just see how the results happen and then react to those instead of somebody trying to dictate how they were going to do it based on the draft.
Yeah. This is going to be fun. This is going to be a fun league, I think.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Anything else you want to hop into before we get out of here?
Nah, I think that's all I got.
Dope. That'll do it from us. We'll see you next week. God knows what we're doing, but we'll see you next week. Have a good one, everybody.